Good morning and welcome, everyone. My name is Annette Johns, and I'm the Associate Director of Policy and Practice with the Newfoundland and Labrador College of Social Workers. I'm honored to be the moderator for today's education event, Fostering 2SLGBTQ+ Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the Workplace. We have over 210 social workers from across the province registered for this event this morning. Social workers are committed to providing high-quality, inclusive social work services, and it's wonderful when we can come together to learn from our social work colleagues and enhance our knowledge and skills. In previous CE evaluations, skills and information related to 2SLGBTQ+ diversity and inclusion were suggested. Therefore, I'm so pleased that this is the focus for our session this morning as we celebrate Pride Month. The webinar presentation will be approximately 75 to 80 minutes, followed by 10 to 15 minutes questions and answers period that I will moderate. Please note that all the details you need, like how to access the slide deck and other housekeeping information, is under the announcement and housekeeping widget. All the widgets can be accessed by clicking the blue and white icons at the bottom of your window. You can also resize and move around any of the elements you see on your screen to customize your viewing experience. During the presentation, I encourage you to type in your questions using the question mark icon at any time, and I will begin asking them at the end of the presentation. Only myself and the presenter can see the questions. However, there is also a chat widget where you can share your thoughts and comments with attendees online for this event this morning as well. So I now want to introduce our speaker, Stephanie Howlett. Stephanie is a registered social worker and proud member of the 2SLGBTQ+ community. Stephanie is CEO of Diversity NL, which she started in 2020 following her passion as an innovator who helps organizations implement inclusive policies and strategies for LGBTQ2S+ inclusion in organizations. Her mantra is that high-performance teams have a secret ingredient: diversity, inclusivity, and belonging. Stephanie provides strategic planning, needs assessments, benchmarking, and workforce training and development sessions to organizations on topics related to belonging at work, business case for diversity, equity, inclusion, 2SLGBTQ+ 101, general neutral language and pronouns, unconscious bias training, and so much more. She coaches individuals and organizations, helping them progress their knowledge around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Stephanie also brings 19 years of healthcare experience in both rural and urban settings in the province. Stephanie, I'm so looking forward to your presentation this morning, and I'll now turn the virtual podium over to you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Annette. I appreciate everyone's support, and welcome everyone. Happy Pride Month. June, as you know, is Pride Month, and it's also Indigenous History Month. So we're going to celebrate two of those different things today. So I like to start every presentation with a little bit of music. So here's to the Dancing Queens. I hope you can hear it. So with Pride, there's always a little bit of dancing and celebration that we can do. Join me. I can't see you dancing, but you can check out my moves. A little bit of Dancing Queen, a little bit of ABBA. It's always great on a presentation. Get the celebration started. Okay, enough of my dance moves. We're going to get into the presentation. So let's go for it. So this is our first slide. Hopefully everyone can see up there. And we're going to go to my cartoon character image. So if we can do that, switch me over, that would be fantastic. So I'm going to ask you if you can identify this song for me. Today we're looking at fostering 2SLGBTQ+ diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. So how do we create a sense of belonging? So that's our main focus today. Hopefully you'll get some takeaways, some things that you can use to be social agents for change and justice in your workplaces. As social workers, we're strong advocates. We look to help our clients or coworkers through their many different struggles that they have. So this is one of our first songs. In the chat, can you tell me who is singing this song? And what is the song? I think it's probably pretty obvious. Any takers on this song enough? Anyone who will know who it is? And what year? Any guesses? Any guesses on who that is? No guesses at all.
Someone said Diana Ross on Coming Out.
Absolutely. Any idea what year it was? We're going back in time.
Anyone know the year? No one's come in with the year, Stephanie.
All good. The year's 1980. So we're going back to the 80s. So the 80s are a good time. Absolutely. So Diana Ross wrote this song, and it truly was her time of coming out as a Black artist, coming out of at a time when it certainly was difficult for women and females in the industry to come out. And she's absolutely celebrated in the industry. And we use that as one of the Pride songs during Pride marches, and certainly during Pride Month, we use her song. Today, we're going to get into some terms and terminology so that we're all on the same starting page. I apologize if some of you know these, so bear with me as I go through a little bit of terminology so we all get on the same page. So the first thing is diversity. So diversity is understanding that each individual is unique and recognizing our individual differences. And that is really important, to understand who's in our workplace, our differences, what makes us unique, and to really celebrate that, because that's an important thing to acknowledge. And inclusion is the act of being included. You know, how many times do we unfortunately exclude people and not really being aware that we're excluding them? So please be aware who's in the workplace. How can we help include people? How do we make people feel that they belong? Because belonging is truly what we want for folks. We want so that people come to work, they show up to appointments, they show up to our clinics, they talk to us, and they can feel like they can bring their full authentic selves to each and every conversation. So workplace inclusion. So is achievement of a work environment in which all individuals are treated fairly and respectfully, have equal access to opportunities, resources, and can contribute fully to the organization's success. So really, we all want to feel like we fit in, that we're part of the organizations that we work with, that we're absolutely seen for who we are and our abilities and everything that we have to give that's unique about us. So to be this red little puzzle piece, make sure that we're able to add to that, make sure that we're able to feel included and be our true selves. Unfortunately, you see the statistic here, 62% of LGBT Canadians have experienced or witnessed discrimination in the workplace. That's from Pride at Work. This is a 2017 statistic, so not that long ago. And I suggest this number is a little bit low. So if people were truly identifying the way that they feel and what they've experienced, I suggest this number may be even greater than that. So that's a great statistic to be aware of, that a lot of people, part of this community, part of the community I'm part of, have experienced discrimination in workplaces. So I'm going to caution people when it comes to labeling, and we all do it. Sometimes we're not aware that we're doing it. So we as humans tend to label people quickly. Person's tall, short, thin, vegetarian. We all sorts of terms and terminology we use. People are educated, uneducated, Muslim, Christians, right? People work in public, private. So just be aware of the labels that we place on people, because this has impacts on their intersectionalities, impacts on how they internalize things that we say to them. Because we're all about in social work building people up, not tearing them down, helping people through the tough times that they go through, helping them celebrate who they are. None of us, I'm sure, have ever seen an iceberg in Newfoundland. So this is the iceberg effect. So with the iceberg effect, on top of the water, this is that little percentage that we see who we think people are, and really it's that 80 to 90% below water who they really are. So getting to know underneath the surface, who people are, what they represent. unfortunately, a lot of times people hide who they are out of fear that they may be judged, out of fear that they may be victims, out of fear that they may be demoted in the workplace, all sorts of reasons why people kind of hide who they are. So you see above the tip of the iceberg here is, you may think you see and know a person's race or gender identity or their age or generation, but that's truly not always the case. Lots of times we create judgments and we make all sorts of statements, unfortunately, just within milliseconds, we make snap judgments the first time we meet people. But truly take into consideration the below the iceberg, who people truly are and the things they keep hidden. These things are hidden. It might be their communication style, their values, their belief systems, their sexual orientation, gender identities, gender expressions, their education, their religious beliefs. So just think about these things the next time you have conversations with folks. Why may not have someone shared something that's going on in their lives with you? There's many different reasons. So you'll see here a selection of 4 individuals. The individual on the left side hiding that they have 2 moms. The next individual is hiding that their real name is Frard, but they make everyone call them Fred. You'll find this with people who move to Canada, taking on westernized names just so that they feel that they fit in better, so that people can pronunciate their names and so forth. The next person's hiding that they're Muslim, potentially out of fear of being judged or hate crimes and different things that are happening within our communities. The last person is wanting to get rid of their accent, maybe to fit in better, maybe to just so no one talks to them about having, that unfortunately Townie versus Bayman accent. How many times do we talk about that? You don't sound like you're from such and such a community. You sound like you're from somewhere else. We say that a lot in Newfoundland and Labrador. We're going to get into a little bit about gender identity so that we're all on the same page with this. So this is the genderbread person. I absolutely love this characterization here. So gender is one of those things everyone thinks that they understand, but most people don't. Gender isn't binary, meaning it's neither male nor female. So when we look at that, many times we misgender people. Sometimes we misunderstand their gender expression, their gender identity. So when we get into it, gender identity is how you in your head define your gender based on how much you align or don't align with what you understand to be the options of, woman, man, two-spirited, gender queer. Gender expression, some of you that know me, you may know that I love wearing a shirt and tie to dress up events. That's how I gender express myself, as sometimes maybe androgynous or sometimes more masculine people may perceive me as. It all depends on, how I feel that day and how you feel. Do you feel comfortable in a set of pumps, a set of heels, a skirt? Do you feel comfortable in a suit? How do you define yourself? How do you gender express yourself through dress, through potentially it could be tattoos of different sorts, all sorts of things. It's our actions, our dress, our demeanor. That's our gender expression. And many times people get gender identity and gender expression mixed up. And then of course it's biological sex. When we're born, the doctor says you have a baby boy, you have a baby girl. These are the things that are said. And, this is not always the way that people identify. So just keep that in mind. I always use my pronouns when I meet people. I try to anyway. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. My name is Stephanie. What's your pronouns? Using pronouns is a respectful way to get to know people and to really get to know their identity. So just throw that out to you. We're going to get into this a little bit later in the presentation. In case you didn't know, there's 63, that's right, 63 different types of gender identity. So your personal sense of your own gender. Some of these are agender. So without gender, people who do not identify as having a gender. Some individuals are gender queer, so it describes any gender identity other than a man or a woman. Many times this is used as well as an umbrella term. Of course, male and female, non-binary, neither male nor female, frequently interchanged with gender queer. Transgender, gender identity is different than the sex assigned at birth. So if your gender, if you identify with the gender assigned at birth, you're cisgender. So transgender would be the opposite of that. two-spirited. So this is a terminology used in our Indigenous community, people having male and female spirits. Sometimes that's referred to as their gender identity. Sometimes it may be referred to as their sexual orientation. So two-spirited is used in the Indigenous community. Pansexual, people who are attracted to the person, not the biological sex. And of course, there's many, many more terms that I don't have up on this slide. So this is an interesting statistic. So of the Generation Zs, they are expected to change their gender identities at least once within their lifetime. So 25%. So someone who within your workplace may change their gender identity. They may go from using, they may be male, then they may come out as being transgender, or may come out in, a different way. So just be aware that, people go through different struggles in their lifetimes. And so gender identities and different things change. It's how you feel may change over time about yourself. And, we all go through different things within our lifetimes. And, certainly for me, I came out to share a little personal story. I came out at 31 and a half. That was really late, coming to really be able to define who I am and be able to define who I am as a person, being comfortable with that I was gay. I knew I was at a really young age. I would say I was probably 7, 8 years old, knowing that I was different in that sense. I at a very young age was given a Barbie at a birthday, and I remember crying, and everyone thought it was the greatest thing to be given. But for someone like me who knew that I was not feminine, and I really associated myself with G.I. Joe and trucks and toys and things like that. So the most devastating thing to give me would be something that would be feminized and things like that. So I was devastated, and everyone thought, what's going on here at a birthday party? This little, female, unwrapped this lovely little Barbie. I remember it distinctly, and it was very devastated and upset and left the table, was inconsolable for a period of time. So, gender toys, very something that we should look at when we're giving things, because not everyone identifies with it the way that they look. So now when we look into this LGBTQ2S, so the 2S is not there. So the 2S really should be at the front of any acronym that we use. I sat in last week or the week before on a panel discussion given by Indigenous community, and Elder Blue was there talking about there's two really things that we can do to support 2S population, and that's two-spirited population, and that is to put the 2S in front of any acronym that we use. And the reason is because our two-spirited Indigenous folks were on the land ever before we were, and to give them that praise and give them that respect, use 2S in front of every acronym that we have. The other thing is to use our pronouns, because it's very respectful. It lets people be their true selves. It doesn't make people come out every single time. So it's helpful within workplaces and organizations to do that. When you look at the symbol, and when you look at all these different words, there's one word in here that I wish was not in here. This was taken from Shutterstock, my account there, and there's one word, and I don't know if any of you can guess what that word is, but the word should never be in here, whoever put it in here. And that word is choice. Being a part of the 2S LGBTQ community, I can tell you, is never a choice for people. This is not a lifestyle. This is something that is who we are. And every time someone says, will you choose? It's like, no, I don't. This is part of my genetics, part of who I am. And I suggest that any part of the people in the community would never choose to be part of this community, because there's so many struggles, there's so many hurdles that we have to overcome, unfortunately. Discrimination happens many, many times. So when we look at our trans community, people think it's all about pronouns and bathrooms, but we know that's not the case. Being a part of the trans community, issues there are many, many issues. So when we look at it really, and I love this, Pink News put it out, and I really love this diagram. So it's pronouns, of course, it's about bathrooms. Absolutely. It's also about long waiting lists for gender clinics. It's about surgery costs. What are we doing about those? Within workplaces, are we covering people's ability to transition to be who they truly are, violence against trans people. We're going to get into some statistics later about the violence in Canada against trans individuals and those who are killed because they're trans. Difficulty accessing legal documents with the correct name and gender. Sometimes people have difficulties with that piece. Homelessness, another big one. Mental health accessibility, addictions accessibility. Unfortunately, our medical professionals, many are uneducated. So there's many different things that we need to look at when it comes to part of our community, which is the trans community. This is the inclusion gauge. So every organization really is somewhere on that gauge, and it's all about a journey towards inclusion. How do we help as practitioners? What do we do as social workers? How do we make people feel included being part of organizations? How do we welcome people? What do we do with our spaces to make them feel welcoming and included? I'm going to show you a short video. In the short video, I absolutely love it. Get out your tissues. It is very impactful. So I hope you enjoy it too. Just listen in. There's music and there's a lot of reading for you to do. So I'm just going to, there's signage and things. So I'm just going to precursor that for that. And we're going to talk a little bit about this video afterwards. So that was the video. What are people's thoughts about the video? I think it's a very impactful video, but what's your thoughts? Please share in the chat. Annette will read out your comments in the chat. What are your thoughts around the video? You know, inclusion starts, you know, it really starts with each and every one of us. You know, the video to me is very impactful. It gets into all different aspects of inclusion. You know, from mental health to people's abilities to, you know, expectations around certain cultures.
Someone, Stephanie's just saying that it was so powerful.
Absolutely. Yep. Very much so. Accenture did a fantastic job in this video. I think it shows some great statistics. I think that, you know, each of us sees ourselves for the most part within this video, you know, the representation there.
Someone else just chimed in and said, great video, says it all.
Absolutely. I agree. Next, we're going to get into some Canadian laws so that you know a few of the Canadian laws, when they were passed, how they were passed, and I guess when they came about. So the first one is Bill C-33. So that was in June the 20th, 1996. So the federal government passed this bill, adding sexual orientation to the Canadian Human Rights Act. And in 2005, Bill C-38 happened. So the bill gave same-sex couples the rights to marry. That wasn't that long ago. So it made Canada the fourth country in the world to allow same-sex marriage. You know, a couple of others that were really impactful were Bill C-16. So it amended the Canadian Rights Act to include gender identity and gender expression to the list of prohibited grounds for discrimination. You know, that wasn't that long ago. 4 years ago, these things were added. Truly unbelievable, really, when it's just our right to be who we are and not to be discriminated against. So Bill C-74 was one of the most10. So November the 12th, 2017 is the official Trans Day of Remembrance, where legislature takes one moment of silence at 10:29 in the morning to honor trans people who have died as a result of anti-trans violence. So a few statistics for you. In 2017, 204 people were killed based on sexual orientation alone. In 2018, that decreased slightly to 173 people. The latest statistics that came out a couple of months ago, there was a 41% increase in hate crimes within Canada targeting sexual orientation. So 263 people were killed in 2018, 2019, based on their sexual orientation alone. To me, that's very impactful. It's unbelievable. In Canada, this is happening. This is our country. You know, people say Canada is very freedom. So I would suggest, you know, we have a ways to go, unfortunately, to get there. So Bill C-66, Justin Trudeau passed this bill. It was his official apology for Canada's role in criminalization, oppression, and violence against the 2SLGBTQ plus community. There is a wonderful yet very sad documentary. It's called The Fruit Machine, in case you haven't seen it. It gets into, I guess, all the travesties that happen within our public service. People were unfortunately followed, shunned, taken into small rooms and interrogated, making them come out or quit their jobs as public servants. And this happened up until not that many years ago. RCMP were involved with this. Others were involved with this, really hunting out those who are part of the 2SLGBTQ community within government. So this is why Justin Trudeau gave this apology. So The Fruit Machine, wonderful documentary, have a look at it. Really eye-opening to what happened, you know, within Canada. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this, but this just came out in December. This is the sexual orientation laws around the world. So this really gets into where it's legal, where it's illegal, so that you know that 71 countries, it's punishable by death if you're part of this community, part of the 2SLGBTQ community. 15 countries criminalized, you can be criminalized for being transgender. You know, 2SLGBTQ youth are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide. 1 in 3 trans youth attempt suicide. So these numbers are overwhelming. I know every time myself and my wife travel, we have a conversation. Is it safe to be there? Where we're going to go, in the times when we could travel, are we going to be friends? What are we going to be when you look at this a little closely in some different places? You'll have an understanding of, is it safe to be there? Is it not safe to be there? When we go a little bit further, you'll see here, the countries that is not safe to be in. You see those reds. So in certain places, you certainly would not come out, because if you did, you could be killed, imprisoned, jailed. So in case you're wondering, some of these symbols, so the symbols that looks like a family, that's what it is. Same-sex couples can adopt in these countries. Same-sex couples can be married in these countries. One that kind of looks like two wedding rings there. So really, the countries around the world in many different places, it's certainly not safe to travel. I know people, unfortunately, who have had two Facebook accounts, one for their home country and one for their friends here within Canada. And unfortunately, one person got their account mixed up, what they put on there regarding them and their partner, and they will not be returning home, because if they did, they would be killed for that. So absolutely devastating that you have to really have two Facebook accounts to be who you truly are, because, unfortunately, some countries, religion, politics, different laws really play out. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts or opinions on some of these things, but, unfortunately, as you can see in many countries around the world, it's not safe for people who are part of this community. Any thoughts on that within our chat? Have any of you had to think about the places that you travel to with your partner, with your spouse, with your significant other? Have you had to think about, crossing the border? We have wedding rings on. Are we married? Are we not married? Are we friends? Do you have to do that consideration? Because if you're part of this community, this is very real. So these are some key dates in Canadian history. We're going to have some polling questions now. So May the 14th, 1969, Canada decriminalized homosexuality. So it was illegal in Canada to be part of this community until 1969. We're going to get into our first polling question. Bear with me. So our first polling question is, first gay rights protest. Where was it held? Does anyone know where the first gay rights protest was held? What city was this in? You should be able to vote there. Here we go. Our voting is up. So where was the first protest to? Does anyone know? What's your best guess? Where did it happen? So lock in your vote. I'll give you a couple more seconds. Seems like folks think it might be Toronto. It might be Vancouver. Where do you think this was? Okay, I'm going to stop there. So we have 33% think it was in Toronto. Actually, what happened was August 28th, 1971, 100 people from Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa gathered on Parliament Hill. So it was actually in Ottawa. So in 1973, homosexuality was removed from the DSM as a disorder. So the Diagnostic and Statistics Manual was removed only in 1973. Truly amazing. Who was the first openly gay member of Parliament? Let's try another question. So the polls are open. So who was it? Was it Seamus O'Regan, Sven Robinson, Kathleen Wynne? What's your thoughts? Who was the first openly gay member of Canadian Parliament? Lock in your vote. Right now, it seems that most people think it might have been Sven. Not sure, maybe Seamus. What are your thoughts? Lock it in. I'll give you a couple of more seconds. Okay, here we go. So most people think it was Sven Robinson. Absolutely, it was. Sven came out in an interview with Barbara Frum. Does anyone remember Barbara Frum? So Sven was a BC's MP back in the day. So truly amazing. That was a while ago that Sven would have came out. So good on Sven, absolutely. And we're gonna, Seamus O'Regan absolutely is a great representative of Newfoundland and Labrador in the federal government. So here we go, on to the next date in Canadian history. The term two-spirited was coined in 1990, not that long ago. So in 1992, federal court lifted the ban against gays and lesbians in the military. Up until then, it was illegal to serve in the military, or if you served, you certainly weren't out at the time because it would have been illegal. In 1995, sexual orientation was included in the Canadian Charter of Bill of Rights and Freedoms. To have equal protection, equal benefit of the law without discrimination. We got into that bill a few minutes ago. In February 2013, Kathleen Wynne was the first openly LGBTQ premier elected in Ontario. I don't know if any of the rest of you remember, but unfortunately, Kathleen Wynne was crucified in the media, and absolutely her life was ripped apart for being part of this community. Everything was publicized about her and her partner. I suggest, if she was part of the heteronormative community, this would have never happened, or not as much as what it did to her. She went through a huge ordeal with her life and everything being publicized. Our last polling question on this little piece: when did Parliament raise the first pride flag? Does anyone know when that would have happened? So what year was it? Was it 2017, 2014, 2016, or 2018? When was the first pride flag raised in Ottawa in Parliament? What year? So lock in your votes. It wasn't that long ago. And of course, it was under Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. So what year was that? I'll give you another second or two to lock in your votes. Here we go. For some reason, it skipped over. Can you all see that? Votes locked in there. People are saying it was 2016. You're absolutely right. June the 1st, 2016, under Justin Trudeau, was when the first pride flag was raised in Parliament. Well done. So this is the bonus question. What year did same-sex marriage become legal in Newfoundland and Labrador? When was that? What year did same-sex marriage become legal in Newfoundland and Labrador? Lock in your votes now. What are your thoughts on this one? What year did same-sex marriage become legal in Newfoundland and Labrador? All right, I'll give you a couple more seconds. All right, survey says it was January the 14th, 2013. Actually, it was December the 21st, 2004. That's when it was. So it's been a few years now, thankfully. I was very delighted to see that. I could get married then, so how wonderful, right? To be able to get married only as 2004. Quite sad, but yet we have, we've come a little ways in this province, so I'm grateful for those who have made the laws that same-sex couples can get married here. So I'm going to get you to name this song. It's a local song by a local artist. So I'm going to get you to put in the chat who you think this song is by.
If I was molded like a monster, would you blame me for dropping bombs upon buildings far away in places I've never heard of? If I was raised to be a saint, to never do anything wrong, would you be mad at me? If I explored new things, if I was told that God loves some, but he hates the ones outside boxes we've created, initiated with our lives, would you blame me for my judgment? If the mold of me's not mine, if I had no choice to not hear the noise, singing, oh my goodness, we keep making this promise to destroy one another, to destroy.
Any idea who this artist is? Does anyone know? Who's this artist? Local artist. That's a giveaway there, I think. Who is the local artist? So after your vote, we're going to talk a little bit about the artist, and we're going to talk a little bit about the song. So certainly the song looks at a lot of different intersectionalities, sexuality, religion. It certainly speaks to many people. Give you a couple of more seconds. All right, I'll lock in your votes there. Absolutely, Kelly Loader is the artist. Absolutely, amazing artist. Local here, Newfoundland and Labrador, molded like a monster. So if you haven't had a chance to check Kelly out in concert, if you haven't had a chance to check out this video, please have a look at it. It's absolutely wonderful. The video shows kids playing in the woods. They're dressed in outfits that would look like, I guess, when we were kids playing almost like a cowboys and Indians sort of thing. It gets into, I guess, kids in the video are a combination of white kids, black kids, fighting one another, and they have guns, they're shooting each other, and it really gets into, I guess, a whole lot of different things when it comes to sexuality, killing each other, the things that we've done to each other over the sake of religion, over the sake of, diversity and inclusion, and really speaks to, certainly speaks to me as part of this community, and hopefully to you, with we can do better. And, we should not be, dropping bombs on one another, hurting each other. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts about that song or has seen it. Certainly always open to some discussions in the chat about that. So these are some flags. So we have 4 different flags here. So the flags represent a whole bunch of different things. So when I go through the slide, I always think of, I'm a bit of a geek, self-proclaimed geek. I think of the Big Bang Theory, Fun with Flags with Sheldon Cooper, right? So when I look at these, trying to have like a little bit of light and a little bit of fun, because there's so many different flags that represent our 2SLGBTQ community. There are a number of different flags, and this is just a selection of 4. So I'm going to ask folks, which of the flags is the progress flag? So I'm going to go back again. So which of these flags here is the progress flag? So have a look. Is it flag A, flag B, flag C, or flag D? Which is the progress flag? So I'm going to get you to lock in your votes, which one you think is the progress flag. And we're going to talk a little bit about 4 of these different flags. So as you're locking in your vote, I'm going to tell you a little bit about a progress flag. It was created in 2018 by Daniel Cesar. It gives great emphasis on inclusion and progression. The traditional pride flag with a black and brown stripe represents persons of color, those who have died, and those living with AIDS. The arrow shape on the trans flag points to the right, which represents forward movement. It's placed along the left edge of the flag to state that progress still needs to be made. And absolutely, you are correct. 34 people said it was flag A. Absolutely. Flag A is the progress flag. I'm going to go back a couple slides and to show you the other slides we're talking about. So flag B, does anyone have any idea what flag B would represent within our 2SLGBTQ community? So any thoughts in the chat? What flag is this? What flag does it represent? Any guesses in the chat, Annette? Who knows this information?
No, there's nothing coming in through the chat yet, Stephanie.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you then it's the two-spirited flag. So there's a number of different flags that represent the two-spirited flag. So it was created in 2016 by 2SLGBTQ. The feathers, represent woman and man, and the circle represents unity into one. It's typically put over a gay pride flag, but it can also be put on a transgender or non-binary flag, or other flags, I suggest. Anyone know what flag C is? We see flag C quite frequently in our pride parades. People have them on their houses. Flag C is a flag that we would see frequently, as much as we see certainly the rainbow pride flag. Any idea what flag C is, folks? I know you know.
Nothing coming through on the chat there yet. Oh, someone just said trans.
Absolutely, you're correct. 200 points. So it's the light blue are traditional colors for baby boys and pink for baby girls, with the white stripe in the middle for those who are transitioning or consider themselves neutral or undefined gender. So that's the trans flag. Yeah. So how about flag D? Does anyone know what this one represents? And like I said, this is just 4 different flags that are part of the community. There's many more that I could show you. So absolutely go in and have a look at the different flags. These are some of the flags we should have in our offices. These are some of the things, signs, symbols that we should have up to be inclusive. Does anyone know what?
Someone noted bisexual.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a bisexual flag. So the pink represents same sex, blue is other attraction, and purple's for gender spectrum. So thank you for that. I appreciate your participation. So people ask, how can I help with diversity, equity, and inclusion? How can I really help? I sat in on this wonderful chat by Celia Daniels. Celia Daniels works for TransWorks in the US. Celia has a tragic story in one sense, and a very story of resilience. Celia, part of the trans community, East Indian, came out and certainly shunned by many. Celia had over a multi-billion-dollar company. When Celia came out as trans, that went away, unfortunately. And Celia, the best advice that, her pronouns are she and her and they, the best advice Celia gives is that we need to change from the bathroom to the boardroom. What are symbols we have on the bathroom, and who sits around our boardroom? Who has a voice at the table? Because change doesn't come from a letterhead. It doesn't, it really comes from your hearts. It doesn't come from changing your logo to pride colors. What else are you doing? Those things are gimmicks and people see through those. We really need to walk the walk, walk the talk, help people understand, provide the education, so we really need executive level support within organizations, top down and bottom up. How do we all help that piece of it? We want to make sure that employees empowered should be, and this really should be on our CEO's agenda. It should be on every company, have a voice at the table for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Invite people to the table, talk about the things that are going on in the world, things that are happening. Black Lives Matter, what's happening to our Muslim community, what's the travesties that's happened to our Indigenous communities, what's going on in the world. Don't just show empathy, show empowerment. These are some of the things that we need to do and need to remind people to do. So I'm sure some of you are familiar with this. The wheel of power and privilege. Where do we fit in? In the middle is the power, and on the outside is marginalized. So where do you fit in? What's your skin color, your education, your abilities, your body size, your wealth, your language, your gender? Where do you fit into this wheel? Really looking at that and identifying where you fit into. For me, I have a master's education, so I have power. I'm average build, I suggest at this point. That shifts over time, of course, for those of you who know me. I'm English. I'm white. So there's many privileges I have, due to these things. I'm not privileged when it comes to my gender identity, when it comes to my sexuality. Those things are barriers for folks. But having said that, I have a lot of power and I do have a lot of privilege. And I do consider it a privilege to grow up in Newfoundland and Labrador, in many different senses. Having that love and support from my family and from my friends and support networks and those who I surround myself by, having the love of a wonderful wife and 2 beautiful puppy dogs. These are the things that give me support and that I feel give me power and privilege. But it's a pandemic and not everyone's in the same boat. I've heard people say, yeah, but we're all in the same boat. But are we? We're all in different pieces of that boat. Some are in a bit of a leaky boat. Others are on a cruise ship. Others might be in a dory. So, those boats of privilege look completely different for every single person. Some people have lost their marriages. Some people have lost loved ones. Some people have lost their lives. Others have lost all sorts of different things during the pandemic, mental health, all sorts of things have happened. But we're understanding where is your power, where is your privilege, understanding that piece of it. Building strong allies. How do we do that? How do you become an ally? You don't self-proclaim I'm an ally. Someone actually gives you that. They say, you know what, you are an ally. And this is the reason why you're an ally. So being able to acknowledge your privilege, listen to the community, listen to your clients, listen to those who are having conversation and voices, really learn and unlearn, because we have many different unconscious biases, bringing those up, bringing those to the forefront, having tough conversations. I remember when Black Lives Matter happened and the travesties in the States happened of the deaths. People were calling each other racist and different things. But you know what? We all have certain biases. We're all racist in different senses. We all have different judgments we make on each other. But having those tough conversations is important for us as social workers, for us as social agents for change. How do we advocate if we don't understand? So really educating yourselves and providing support to one another. That is very, very important. I can't tell you how important it is for the support that my family and friends have given me when I came out and still give me on a regular basis. We need to be open to feedback, about how your behavior is impacting others. Being truly open, because we're going to say things. I say things sometimes that really, I think back and say, where did that come from? Where did that come from? Where did that image come to my mind? We need to observe the way other folks around you act as allies, even in the smallest ways. How do people support you? How do you support others, right? Avoid assuming how people identify. Listen for and politely ask how someone wants to be identified. That's really important within our community, right? Listen to the experiences and perspectives of our 2SLGBTQ community. Reflect on these experiences and perspectives. Acknowledge and validate, even if you don't understand. It's okay. We're all going to make mistakes, and this is learnings. Ask questions. Be curious, but be kind. I referred to Celia Daniels earlier. This is Celia. And I say to folks, we're starting from the bathroom. This is an inclusive restroom, inclusive bathroom sign. right? I've seen these in some facilities. I know Genesis has them. I know the Summit has them. Maybe some of your workplaces have them, right? This restroom may be used by any person, regardless of gender identity or gender expression. Please lock the door behind you. This is a simple sign. I've been into a few workplaces lately for work, and they have male symbol and a female symbol. And I said to the person, so where does everyone else pee to, right? Like, honestly, someone that's transgender or someone that's non-binary, someone that doesn't feel like they belong to that male or female symbol, where do they go to? The person just looked at me and just like didn't have any idea what to say. So this is real. You know, I have acquaintances. They don't pee when they go out. Like, that's unheard of. You can't pee somewhere because you don't feel comfortable. Something might happen to you in that bathroom, or you're going to be judged going into the bathroom because you don't look like that perceived gender that's on the door. That's not right. I had a conversation with an individual last week. Their child in school, school called home. They weren't eating or drinking, wondering if there was an issue. Well, yeah, there's an issue because your school does not have gender neutral inclusive restrooms. So that individual, 12, 13-year-old who's in the midst of a transition did not go for a bathroom break. Like, unbelievable. So like, we need to do better. We need to get better. We need to advocate for something so small as this. So language truly does matter. The things we say matter. How we say them matters. What we say matters. Always presume there's someone in the room that's part of the gender diverse community. I love the word pronouns. Preferred, not so much, because they are my pronouns. My she, her, and hers are my pronouns. They're not my preferred pronouns. They're who I am. Right? So when you ask people their pronouns, try to remember their pronouns and be respectful and use their pronouns. If someone's transgender, don't refer to them as the person they used to be. It's who they are right now, the name they are right now. So as well, when we talk about language, there's many different words that we used to use. And I don't know if any of you can throw up in the chat some of the language that we used to use. Like, for instance, we used to use the word mankind, right? So the opposite, and really what we should be using now is humankind, right? Or manning the office. Staffing the office should be used. Forefathers was used many times, and right now it's ancestors. Man hours was words that used to be used. Now it's working hours, or just hours of work. Man-made. So the wording used now is artificial, synthetic, constructed, right? In the past, occupations, different occupations like chairman was used, and now it's cheer. So policeman, policewoman was used. Now it's police officer. Spokesman used to be used. Now it's spokesperson. So there's many different ways that we can use language. And let's talk about people's abilities and disabilities. So the person should always come first when we're talking about people, not their disability or ability. So a person with a disability, right? Persons with disability, right? They're people. We're all people. If someone has a disease or diagnosis, as a person with cystic fibrosis, a person with cancer, right? If a person's part of the community, is not like lesbian comes first in front of me. Like, I'm a person. As a person who is a lesbian, like, I'm part of the community. So just trying to be respectful when it comes to some of those things. So we're going to get into a little bit about that, a little bit into misgendering and so forth. The next is going to be a little video that I'm going to show you, and you're going to guess who this person is and guess what they're singing about.
I am what I am. I am my own special creation. So come take a look. Give me the hook or the ovation. It's my world that I want to have a little pride in. My world, and it's not a place I have to hide in. Life's not worth a damn till you can say, I am what I am. I am what I
Does anyone know who that is? And what the song is in the year? I'm testing your trivia knowledge today. Anyone know who that was?
I'm just looking at the chat there now. Stephanie, no one's come in yet.
Okay, so it's in 1984. So we're going back to the 80s again. And this is another song that's used in many different Pride marches. Certainly in June month, you'll hear this blasting in Pride parades. If it was a normal year, I'm sure you would hear this one. Any idea who that person was? So it's Gloria Gaynor. I Am What I Am. Fantastic song, all about community. And don't we all want to be who we are? I know I do, and certainly I am who I am. And I guess the thing is that people either like that or not so much. They carry on. So the next part we're going to get into is about a culture of belonging. How do we create cultures of belonging in workplaces? So I'm going to show you a little bit of video about, culture of belonging, how we create belonging, and what we do to create belonging to make sure that people can be part of that culture ad and feel that they belong within our organizations. So have a look at this video.
There are people out there that would consider me, quote unquote, I hate this word, but a terrorist.
As an Indigenous person, you were known as somebody who potentially could be a drunk, have substance abuse issues.
Being Indian, they may have expected me to know a lot about computers.
It's sometimes a really unique experience navigating the world as a person with a disability who looks to be completely able-bodied.
He made a comment about, well, don't worry about this that's going on because you won't be here too much longer. You'll be off having your next baby soon.
Most women are, told they need to behave a certain way.
People really think that my generation is lazy.
Just another blonde waitress.
Hey, do you rap?
The only black girl.
I didn't belong.
I guess kind of growing up, people made these assumptions about what I was supposed to be, but it was really eye-opening for me to realize that I had been making those same assumptions myself.
We all like to think that we're inclusive, but sometimes we don't actually step back and think, wait a second, did I hear everybody in the room?
I mean, don't judge is the message, but it's also hard not to.
I always thought that every gay man was flamboyant and rude.
The older generation is set in their ways.
Initially, I thought there was something weird about a girl who would want to be a camera operator because of the word cameraman, and we still have to work past these things and stuff.
I went into the school on my first day, and there's these little girls, and they're wearing hijabs, and I was really intimidated by that.
Have your initial judgments, but also be willing to learn.
My definition of inclusion is a world and a society in which constructed barriers have been torn down.
Inclusion for me is setting up an environment where everybody is comfortable.
Open to accept other people's opinions.
All individuals, regardless of their diversity, feel welcomed, feel respected.
It means that they don't have to try to be what others expect them to be.
Change is possible, but it takes the right person to make a change happen.
I had a shop floor supervisor who stood up for me and sent out a company-wide email saying that Robin has every legal right to use the women's change rooms. It's funny because you do find allies in some of the strangest places.
One thing we can do to support inclusion is to talk about it.
You have to demonstrate that you're committed to this.
Get to know people around you. Do something different. Learn something different. Learn about a culture.
Different races, different religions, different belief systems, and see what there's good in all those things.
Be an active listener. That's one of the things I practice with other immigrants as well.
Open up your mind and take your time and get to know someone. Instead of putting them in this box, just showing that interest, it's gonna surprise you.
Ask me a stupid question. I don't care if it's a stupid question, just ask me.
I'm an open book and willing to answer them.
I don't see it as a negative thing. I see it as a teachable moment. Just ask me how to pronounce my name.
It's simple. You decide that other people's feelings and experiences matter.
We need to have more uncomfortable conversations so that we can drive more inclusion. And oftentimes, it's not easy.
And it's important, otherwise change will never happen.
My name is Shomudeep Ganguly, but people call me Sam.
I am Layla Karem.
Mutsa Matanga.
Ms. Genevieve Leblanc.
Ashley Pasila.
Patrick Duff.
Neil McLaughlin.
Helena Gotchling.
Rod Bolger.
Jessica Shue.
Kazim Marcano. I'm a chef and I forge metals.
A proud mother.
Forklift operator and a truck driver.
I envision a day when we can just be so accepting of each other, where we can make space for others.
So what are people's thoughts about that video? Great video by RBC, speaking up for inclusion. And we all need to speak up for inclusion, and it's not an easy thing to excuse me, to do. And we do need to have tough conversations, unfortunately. And it's getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. And I think as social workers, we're really good at that. We're really good at bringing up these issues, bringing up topics, advocating for people. So how did this video strike people? What did you like? What was good about it? What surprised you about it? Is there anything? What's your thought about inclusion? Like, what do you do to help inclusion in your workplace? Things to think about. Any thoughts on the video? If not, we'll just carry on to the next.
Stephanie, someone did say that they love the line, decide that other people's feelings and experiences matter.
Yeah. How impactful is that? Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. So when we carry on next, talking about other people's feelings, language matters, using non-gender specific language. Instead of, do you have a boyfriend or girlfriend? Use, are you seeing anyone? Can't tell you how many times growing up I was asked that question. Many, many, many times. And when you're part of this community, it's so uncomfortable because people assume you're dating the person of the opposite sex. So don't make that assumption. As well, if you're, in a store or if you're somewhere else, how many times have you heard people say, how may I help you, ma'am, sir, ladies, gentlemen? Those words aren't used anymore. How may I help you? Be non-gender. Right? Because not everyone goes by those old gender. People are non-binary. Like, it's not male nor female these days, right? So, thanks, friends. Have a great night. Good morning, folks. I use the word folks a lot. Hi, everyone. And what may I get for you? Can I help you with something? Shift the gender inclusion language so it's respectful and it acknowledges, right? It acknowledges who people are. Like, let's try shifting some of this conversation. And it's going to take a time to get there. I work with a small tech company, and it's made up of 10 males and 1 female. And the word guys, G-U-I-S, is used. I can't tell you how many times. So guys, so really that's an exclusionary word. I know it's meant not to be exclusionary, so I came up with a guys jar. And every time someone says the word guys, they have to pay $1. And I can tell you that females gotten quite a bit of money out of this. And it's not about giving money. So it's theoretically money, which actually is going to charity, is going to 2SLGBTQ charity. Jokingly, we say it's going to be giving to her, but it's so that everyone is reminded that the word guys, there's certain things that may be triggering for people, and let's try to be more inclusive in our conversation and the things that we talk about. So by implementing some of these things, and they correct each other, it's like, that's $1, that's $1, that's a toonie. So they actually keep track of it on the side of their desks. How many times in a run of the day they say the word guys, trying to cut down on it. So sometimes there's things like that we can easily do. Right? Microaggressions, our words that we use, they have big impact, big impact. That's so gay, right? Those illegal aliens, that's so ghetto, so if we knew that someone grew up poor, would you say something about something being poor, right? If you knew someone had a disability, would you talk about disabilities? Right? That's so retarded. These are words that I'm sure a lot of us grew up probably said, but we know that that's not where language should be. They're triggering. They're just not respectful. So think about those things. You play ball like a girl. What's that translating into? Women are unable to achieve at the same level as men. Femininity is negative. The language we use, just see, does it devalue people's power? Does it devalue men? Does it devalue women? Does it devalue people in general? What does it say? What is it saying? That's gay. The translation, something that's ineffective, annoying, useless, is being equated to people who are part of the 2SLGBTQ community. It's not said in a positive light. Similarly, when someone says, BAME and townie, different things, words that we use to describe people, is not said in a positive light. And I certainly wouldn't equate these for that's gay and BAME and townie. They're not the same. They certainly don't have the same impact, I suggest. Just people internalize these words. It takes them back. It really does something to their inner psyche. So just be careful of some of the words that we use with folks. You don't even act black. What does that mean? I'm sorry I became disconnected from you, unfortunately. Everything back on? Everything can be heard?
Yes, Stephanie, you're back on. We can hear you good.
Sorry about that. Unfortunately, a telephone hooked up to a laptop and you don't know how to disconnect it is a real technical thing. So I don't even act black. What does that mean? You're devaluing a part of a person's identity while in the same time boxing them into a stereotype of what black means, what white means. Like, what do these things mean, right? Every person's experiences are ethically different. Like, what does that look like for people? Just think about your words. Words have impact. Words have great impact. The next section we're going to get into briefly is about pronouns, right? Pronouns and their importance, how we use them in workplaces. The next thing is a little animated video I'm going to have you watch. So it's all about pronouns and pronouns in the workplace.
Good morning, Alex. How was your weekend?
Great. I had a relaxing, quiet weekend at home. It was nice. What about you?
It was good. I went for a hike and rested the rest of the weekend.
What about you, Gary?
I had a great weekend. Thanks for asking.
Well, that's me. See you both around.
Bye, Alex.
Bye.
They are so sweet. Wish they still worked in our department.
They? Who are they?
Alex.
Sure. She's just one person, though.
Alex is non-binary.
What is non-binary?
Non-binary means they don't identify with male or female, which means Alex's pronouns aren't he or she. Instead, they ask to be referred to as they, their, or them.
Interesting. So what are pronouns, then? I guess I'm not fully understanding.
Well, Gary, pronouns and preferred gender pronouns have slightly different definitions. Pronouns, in the traditional sense, are what you're thinking of. They are a word that refers to either the people talking, like you and I, or someone that is being talked about, like her or his.
Right. So Alex prefers to be referred to as them?
Right. Preferred gender pronouns are simply the pronouns or set of pronouns that an individual would like others to use when talking to or about them.
All right, well, that makes more sense. I feel bad. I've been referring to Alex as a she for a while now.
That's all right, Gary. Not everyone realizes how important preferred gender pronouns are. People don't always think to ask.
Right. I never thought to ask something like that before. I assumed it might be rude.
It's not rude. It's better to get it right than to not know. Using a person's chosen pronoun is a form of mutual respect and understanding.
Well, I'm glad that I know now. I'll be sure to ask from now on. Speaking of which, what are your preferred pronouns?
Thanks for asking, Gary. I prefer she and her. I even recently added my preferred pronouns to my email signature and LinkedIn page.
All right. And I prefer he and his. I'll go update my signature now.
It is important to remember that we can't always see someone's gender identity with our eyes. Gender identity is someone's internal sense of their gender, and to be a true ally, it is important to respect that and always refer to others by the correct pronouns. This reduces the risk of embarrassment or disrespect for everyone involved.
So that was a great little video about pronouns and how they're used in the workplace. So there's two different types of pronouns as the animation just got into. There's gender specific and like she, his, he, hers, and then there's gender neutral, they, them, their, z's, er. So it's really knowing how you identify and what pronouns are yours and asking people their pronouns and practicing pronouns. So if you go into a meeting, first time meeting people, you could certainly introduce yourself with your name, say what your pronouns are. You can also get these lovely stickers for when we get back to each other saying, hello, my name is, hello, my name's Lauren, my pronouns are she and hers. So hopefully when we get back to a time when we see people, post-pandemic, so hopefully we'll be able to practice these things and do these things. And even virtually now, introducing yourself on Zoom, different things that you use, your technology, your Teams, you can put your pronouns there. It's a respectful thing to do. It's very easy to do. Why do we add pronouns? Because it costs nothing. It shows respect for the 2SLGBTQ plus community. We ask cisgender people to lead the charge as there's no risk. It's riskier for transgender or non-binary person does this, as it will out them before potentially they're ready. If cisgender person does this, it normalizes the process. It makes it a safe environment for everyone. And really, as social workers, we're wanting to make the environment for safe so that people can be their full authentic selves, bring their selves to our counseling sessions, to our interactions. And it's a small action, but it's a huge, huge impact. I'm going to skip this for the sake of time. I know that we don't have a whole lot of time left. I want to get into pronouns in your signature. You can see there as a snapshot of my signature. It has my designations, MSW, RSW. My pronouns are there, she, her, and hers. And when you click on this little hyperlink, why is this here? It gets into this wonderful little written document about Max. Max talks about why he uses his pronouns, and those are all the reasons why Max uses these pronouns we just got into. And it gives little micro learnings for people. So I suggest if people haven't already done so, think about using your pronouns and the reasons why you use your pronouns. And I'll just throw out there, not everyone has pronouns or comfortable in using pronouns. So just know that. If organizations don't make it mandatory to put your pronouns in, but highly suggest that people use their pronouns to be respectful. So 10 everyday practices. So talk as though there's always gender diversity in the room. That's a very important one. Show, not just tell the 2SLGBTQ folks that you're here for them. Honor all people as the authority on who they are, starting with their names. Display symbols that are supportive of the 2SLGBTQ community, as well as know resources and supports that are available. We have some wonderful organizations here in Newfoundland and Labrador. Reach out, ask questions, be a part of that. Quadrangles here. We have Parents for Gender Diversity. We have a lot of different organizations that, you can reach out, find more supports. Reach out to me, certainly. Begin to see your office and classroom through a gender lens. What does that look like? Position people as active participants in creating and sustaining your community. Notice and change. Change your language to gender neutral and inclusive. Try to practice some of those things. It becomes easier and easier over time. Practice using gender neutral pronouns before you start your meeting. Make space to give each other a voice to talk about their gender identity, whether they're part of the trans or non-binary community. Give everyone space to talk about that. Practice articulating that one of your legal responsibilities is mitigating gender-based discrimination in the workplace. Speak up against some of those microaggressions that we went through before, some of those things that we talked about. So this is truly where we want to be. Diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being asked to dance, and we really want that belonging. We want to go past diversity and inclusion to belonging so that people are dancing like no one's watching. People truly feel like they're part of the organization. So to you, I say, what can you do in your workplace to enhance diversity, equity, and inclusion? Right now is a time to act, to collaborate, to look at transformation. So what action are you most likely to take after this session? Use gender inclusive language, become an ally, learn about the 2SLGBTQ community, form or join an inclusion and diversity network, add my pronouns to my email signatures, vote on that, think about that. What things can you do to help our community, the 2SLGBTQ community? As social workers, we're strong advocates. What can you do? These are simple things that we can do every single day. It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't take any time. It just takes really a whole lot of thought. So different things that you can do, within your workplace. People are going to start looking at their inclusive language. Absolutely. That's fantastic, right? Learn more. That's wonderful. Look at forming networks within your organization, wherever you're working to. Form that network, form that pride group, form the group, look at transformation from within your organization. Put your pronouns in your email signature. Very easy to do. Talk about it in your next session, within your next team. Talk about pronouns, why they're important, who uses them, how they use them, what you can do. Right? So 37% of people said that they're going to start using gender inclusive language, start using pronouns, become an ally, really talk out, support. Fantastic. So this is my challenge to all of you. So pride is 365, right? So this is your 365 ally challenge. Commit to come out, to take part and to speak up, right? That speaking up piece is really important to our community. And I challenge you to all look at doing this. Any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, Stephanie@diversitynl.com. And thanks for being here today. I truly appreciate the opportunity to present to my peers.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for this fantastic presentation this morning. Oh my goodness, I could stay here for another hour for sure, or longer. But we wanted to leave some time for some question and answers. So we do have some questions that have come in. So I'm just going to ask some of those, Stephanie, in the time that we have left. So someone wanted to note, to say thank you for the presentation. Certainly gives a lot to think about. The specific question is, what do you suggest an organization do when there is a collision between someone's personal, religious, cultural beliefs and the diversity and inclusion practices of an organization? For example, if an employee declines identifying a personal pronoun due to their personal, religious, cultural beliefs. They'll respect the law and use a coworker's personal pronoun, but they decline to identify one for themselves. How does an employer maintain continued respect for diversity?
Yeah, so within the workplaces I've worked with before, I've worked with individuals who their religious background, certainly their value set and their beliefs was certainly completely different than what I was trying to do within that organization of flying pride flags and really looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I was very respectful towards them for not putting the pride flag on their door. That is their right to do that. And not everyone has pronouns. Not everyone believes in pronouns, but it's okay. I think it's okay to disagree, but having these discussions, that's where the challenge comes in, having the tough discussions and having the conversations. That's where it becomes enriching to talk about these things. So, we all work within workplaces and we all have diversity of opinions, and that's what makes it rich and that's what adds value. We wouldn't want everyone to just toe the line and everything be easy, because it's not. These things create work. Diversity and inclusion is going to create work for all of you to be part of the conversation, to step up. I hope that answered your question.
That's great. Thanks, Stephanie. We are getting some comments in the chat too. Just to note, excellent presentation, fabulous presentation. Information was very comprehensive and fantastic. So I just wanted to share some of those with you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Another question we have is, I guess, around the use of, in terms of using the 2SLGBTQ plus, and, how do we keep up on some of the changes to that, to ensure that when we're writing materials or writing things in our practices that we're using the correct terminology? Is there a go-to source that we should be checking in with frequently to make sure we're using that properly?
Yeah, so there are definitely a couple of different sources that I use on a frequent basis, because every organization uses different acronyms. Other organizations, I use 2SLGBTQ+. I've changed that over the past year to put 2S in front. Other organizations use 2SLGBTQ, TIAA. There's a whole bunch of different acronyms. So the I and the A is for intersex, A is for asexual. So there's a whole bunch of different ones that are used. Pride at Work, EGAL. They have some great statistics, some great research, some great information. Just released a research last week all about our school systems. And Newfoundland Labrador is mentioned in there, and unfortunately we're not faring well within our school systems, and hopefully that's something that we can all help create change. So I think you may never have the language correct, either will I, but continue to change and to continue to grow. That's the biggest thing I can say, because language is forever changing, and try to do some research on that and use those few different, resources are really good pieces of information, large organizations in part of Canada.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's excellent. Thank you so much. And you alluded to some of this a little bit earlier around, people identifying with many different cultures. And from your perspective, what are some things we need to consider in ensuring that we capture people's, cultural values and experiences appropriately?
Well, I mean, intersectionalities, that's a great question. Like, there's so many different intersectionalities you think about. Part of people's gender identity, gender expression is just one of them. Religious belief, cultures, there's so many different things that collide. So being respectful and going with the name they give you, going with the pronoun they give you, asking questions, being curious, but being kind. So when we ask, for instance, a person, so where are you from? That's not always a positive. You need to follow that up with something. For instance, tell me a little bit more about your background. Tell me about your education. Where did you grow up to? So when you stop at where you're from, it almost makes a person, it's almost accusatory, and it comes across in a negative light. And I've done that for many, many years, and I've caught myself doing it recently, going, that's not what I mean. I want to help the person become included and connect with them at a deeper level. So just understanding that we all have differences. I think that's huge. Just listening to people. We do a great job as social workers listening, being respectful, just taking in what they say.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent. Thank you so much. So I think we're just about to the end of our time, unfortunately. So I don't see any other questions coming in there at the moment. So we were great to get through the questions that were coming in. So I do, though, want to take this opportunity to thank you, Stephanie, for this stellar presentation and for sharing your knowledge, expertise, and experience with us today on this very important topic. A lot of information was covered, and people did comment about how fantastic your slides were and how fantastic the information was. And certainly the techniques and resources that you offered were excellent. And we really hope that this presentation has provided all of you who joined us today with information that you can go away and integrate into your own practice. And Stephanie, I also want to thank you again for taking time from your busy schedule to facilitate this education webinar. And these sessions would not be possible without the involvement of social workers like yourself, who without question volunteer or offer to do these sessions for your social work colleagues. So this is so tremendously appreciated. For those on the line there, the PDF of the PowerPoint presentation is available on the resource section of the webinar platform, and members may claim 1.5 CPE credits under the required category of workshops as per the NLCSW CPE policy for attending this webinar. We also ask that you complete the evaluation form that will appear on your screen, as your feedback is always so greatly appreciated. And as I've noted in other sessions, we do have our standards for cultural competence as well that you can access on the NLCSW website. That certainly ties in with our topic today for sure. So Stephanie, I don't know if you had any concluding remarks that you wanted to make before we sign off.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I truly hope you all have a wonderful summer, and take care and be safe during the pandemic.
Okay, thanks again, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe.